Welcome to Lord Johnlander, the Outlander podcast for Lord John fans, where we talk all things Outlander, but especially about Jaime and his Sassenach.
And sometimes we talk about Claire, too.
We can't promise you much, but for the next half hour-ish, we can promise chaos and to make you question whatever life choices led you to listen to us. Before we get into it, this is your one and only warning that show and book spoilers are lurking around every corner.
We're even going to spoil crap that never happened.
Hello and welcome to Lord Johnlander. I am Mistress Pandora. You can call me Pan because that's kind of a mouthful. And joining me is my co-host.
It's Beth, otherwise known as Je Suis Prest 747 on Twitter.
So this is our second episode. We're going to go through, if you are, well, you're probably just joining us, unless for whatever reason you're listening to this from the future, which I guess you could be. Whatever. You know what? I think before we get started, I should just full disclosure, I am drinking tequila. So that's what that is.
Plus it's time travel, so there are no rules.
There's no rules whatsoever.
Exactly.
So this episode, we are going to go through our rewatch notes of episode 1.02, Castle Leoch. I think before we get started, though, we should probably mention a couple of things. One, if you manage to somehow find us magically on, I don't know, Spotify, whatever, we have a Tumblr. It is Lord Johnlander. There's no there's no dashes or anything. We do have anonymous messages turned off. If you know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you can so you can find us there. Feel free to send us nice things. We do like our egos stroked, but that's it.
Yes, that's the only reason I'm here is for the ego stroking. So I do not want any negativity at all.
Good.
Please just make me happy.
We know this is a dumpster fire. It is intentional. Thank you, ladies and gents.
Yeah, you don't have to tell us. We know. It's kind of our thing. So
that's the whole premise. The whole premise. Let's do something just awful and have fun with it. But the other thing,
we enjoy it. So
yeah,
we don't care.
I mean, we're having fun. That's what matters. If you guys are, that's stop listening. I don't know what to tell you.
That's secondary. Who said podcast was for the listeners?
It's really not. It's like fan fiction is for us. We write it for us. You just get to read it sometimes.
Exactly.
All right, so that's out of the way. We are on Tumblr at Lord Johnlander. We also would like to have a corrections and clarification segment. This seems like a good place to start that because there was nothing to clarify or correct in the first episode because we hadn't screwed anything up yet. But we talked ad nauseum about Uncle Lamb's lover, his name, and I couldn't remember his name, but I did look it up, and it is Farouz.
Yes.
I
good old Farouz.
So he does have a name.
I wonder if Claire called him Uncle Farouz or
I hope so.
That'd be cute.
I really hope so. That would be super cute. Anyway, so there's that. We didn't make it up. It's on Wiki. And they can't put anything on Wiki that's not true.
That just made me think of a fun family memory, but I will not be disclosing it because my family would kill me. So here we are.
That's fair. So we'll just leave it the mystery of Beth.
Yes.
All right. So we have already prattled on for 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Castle Leoch.
Definitely going to get this done in a half an hour, right?
Totally. It's absolutely going to be a half hour.
Okay.
It's like any Zoom call ever. It's going to be half an hour.
Exactly. All right.
So episode 102 picks up right where 101 left off. Oh wait, no, it doesn't. Yes. Does it start with a flashback? Flash forward?
No, I don't think so.
Because there is one. It. Or am I thinking of episode 3? I'm thinking of episode 3.
I think it starts right where it left off.
Yeah, right.
Where but there's like a brief. Wait.
Oh,
Was the
it's while
flash
they're
forward?
going. It's while they're going through the castle. She's remembering her trip there.
Right.
Right. Yes. 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 Got it. Okay.
We take this very seriously.
No, we don't.
So
sorry.
Anyway, yes. I like the ice sound like rattling in your glass as we descend further and further into hell in this episode. I think it's very fitting.
It's really good tequila.
Anywho, all right. So it picks up where they left off. And they show up to Castle Leoch, and people start meeting them outside. We have old Alec, who is like kind of a bigger character in the books, but he's not very big in the show. But he's the head of the horses, the stable guy.
Head of the horses.
You know what I mean. Anyway. So he shows up, and then, everyone's just kind of talking to each other, greeting each other, and Claire's just kind of like, what the hell? I don't know what's going on. And then we meet Mrs. Fitz, and she, does some teasing with the men, whatever. And then she's kind of like looking at Claire like, what the hell is this woman doing here in her shift? Because they all think she's just like in her shift. But anyway, Claire tells her that Jamie was hurt, and off they go into the castle to fix his boo-boo, aka gunshot wound. Yeah.
So pause.
Oh, yeah.
I want to point out that Claire's get out of jail free card for the entire episode is, I need to take care of Jamie.
Yes.
And he's lying about his last name, and she knows he's lying about his last name because she says Mr. McTavish, and they all look at her like she's grown a second head. But they all love him so much, and so they're like, oh yeah, she's gonna go take care of Jamie. She's gonna go take care of young Jamie. It just opens all the doors. I just wanted to point that out. I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, so she goes down and she's helping him with his wound, and then she sees his back for the first time. And I think Claire kind of, speaking of how she keeps trying to go help Jamie, I think she's got a little thing for bad boys, because it seems the more he tells her about his history, the more she kind of is into him, right? Like,
she runs directly toward every single red flag he throws up.
Yeah,
everyone.
He's like, I was jailed. I was then flogged again. Then I was accused of murder, and then I ate grass. And I ate grass. And she just gets like more and more dreamy-eyed as he, reveals stuff about his history. But he also has the heart eyes for her, the Jamie heart eyes.
Oh, yes.
While she's bandaging him up and stuff, and they end up talking about, well, like I said, he tells her about everything that happened to him with Black Jack Randall. And
well, not everything, but
no, not quite everything, but
just enough to scare her away, but she doesn't have the sense to run.
Oh, Claire, she just loves trouble. But
it's a pretty package, though.
Yeah, it is a pretty package. And then he's so he asks about her husband, and she kind of plays with words a little and said, he's not alive. And so, of course, then Jamie assumes she's a widow, and he holds her, and they have this really like beautiful moment where he holds her. But then in the book, she makes sure to mention that he has an erection while he's comforting her. So this is where we have to bring out the what is it, the Jamie
The Jamie
boner
Fraser
scale.
erection, the boner scale. Can I? Okay, I need timeout. I need clarification on the boner scale. Are we rating the boner, the situation? Are we rating how like inappropriate it is? Because the scale last time was out of 5 penises. And I need to know what the penises are measured. Is it duration? Like, are we lining them up? Like, what?
It's
Can
just
we
a gut
quantify?
It's just a gut feeling. It's just a gut feeling, But I suppose in this case, we should be thinking about kind of a balance between like how appropriate was it, how bad was it, and how easily detectable was it.
I mean, once again, doesn't get enough screen time.
No.
It's just,
I'm gonna go with 4 out of 5 penises.
4 out of 5. I could go. Yeah. How about 4.5?
4.5 penises.
4.5 penises.
That's fair.
Are we gonna figure out how to work this into every single episode? Because
absolutely,
I can think of a few places we might want to back off with it.
Oh, yeah.
Further down the line. Just, we can be irreverent about a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is, I mean, believe it or not, there is a line that we will not cross.
It's way the hell out there, but it's there. Okay, so, all right. Just an overall penises for the erection scale. I mean,
yes.
Are we going to take age into account here? Because this does, like, this, I'm really stuck on this. I do data for a living, like, right? So I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a number here, right? There's got to be a way to define how many penises fall into the Jamie Fraser boner scale system and how this works, right? Like, there's got to be a legend or a key. There's got to be a key.
I mean, I'm just going to go with my gut, but you can come up with like a whole mathematical, scientific measurement system too. You know what? It'll be interesting to see how close my gut is to what you come up with.
My completely scientific.
That'll be fun for us. All right.
I mean, at the end of the day, he's 23. Boners occur.
Yes. That's like such a cute, I mean, I don't want to say that's a cute thing about Jamie, but like his what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
is it not penis?
His boundless virgin energy is like just very endearing.
You can hear the glass, I'm sure. I'm hydrating though. This one's water.
But more on Jamie's boundless virgin energy later.
All that manly virility later. We'll put it. I'm not going to say we'll put a pin in that.
No.
This is devolving way too fast.
Oh God!
I'm not going to say we're going to put a pin in that, but we will unpack this. Oh God! We'll unpack this next time.
I mean, it's truly going to be unpacked in episode 7, but we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, on with the show.
I got warm in here.
So after Jamie and Claire have their moment and like make heart eyes at each other and all that good stuff.
She's sobbing and telling her life story, her sob story, and he's got a heart on.
Yeah.
Just, I couldn't let it go. Sorry.
Claire finally gets to sleep a little, and then she's woken up by Mrs. Fitz, and she is taken to the laird. Of course, Mrs. Fitz, when she changes Claire's clothes, she's a little like, that's the weirdest corset I've ever seen, and that's when Claire blames France.
That's the other get out of jail free card. She's hoarding the get out of jail free cards in this game of Monopoly.
Yeah. I mean, blame France is like could be like the subtitle of this episode.
It could.
So she goes and meets Colum, the laird, and figures out at least what year it is. And then she tells the most cockamamie story that I've ever heard in my life.
She's traveling from Oxfordshire to France.
Yes, she's traveling from Oxfordshire to France via the Highlands. Now, I don't know if anybody has ever looked at even a rough map of the world.
Just part of Europe, not even the whole thing, just part of it.
Just
the western bit.
It's truly the dumbest lie I've ever heard in my life.
Is she traveling Delta? That's my question. Is she traveling Delta? Because you could go from LaGuardia to Portland and you're stopping in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, all flights lead through Atlanta, right?
So apparently all horses and carriages, but only when you're in your underwear, lead to the Highlands. I bet they didn't put that on the tourist brochure.
I mean, whoever was like the navigator for that trip, like they fell asleep at the wheel. Okay.
Which does explain why Colum and Dougal are like, you're lying. That, you know what? They don't really explore how off the wall that explanation is. Like, what was she doing? What was she?
It's like nobody quite believes her, but nobody really like calls her out on that either, which is kind of.
I mean, Dougal kind of does.
Yeah.
But no one calls this out. Like, no one says, "Hey, if you're gonna lie, get a map." Because
and this is a woman who's traveled all over the world.
Yes, she has. So, okay, but speaking of, can you also, Lucky Claire, this is set in Europe. Can you imagine trying to bullshit about the existence of American cities 200 years ago? You couldn't do it. Oh, you mean that wagon stop? Oh, you mean that trading post? Like, what are you talking? Why are you pronouncing it this way? Why are you saying Charleston? Why?
Although probably people that live in the Highlands, she could probably just like make shit up completely, because like she'll be like, oh yeah, it's a new city, you know, the city of gobbledygook, and they'd be like, oh, that's new. We didn't hear that one yet, but you know, new continent, new cities every day.
But unfortunately for her, she's talking about traveling to France by way of apparently the UK's version of Atlanta. But
you know,
she's selling the story. She's selling the story to two really educated people.
Yeah.
And just counting on them to not connect the dots.
Well, you know, I think maybe she underestimated them in the beginning. I really think she underestimated both Colum and Dougal. Although, and I could see maybe underestimating Dougal, but she's already had this. I mean, she can tell that Colum's a sharp guy. Like, she has to be able to tell, you know? So she's really playing with fire there. Although it reminds me a little bit of how John in later books and especially in the show just kind of shows up at Fraser's Ridge via like any travel he has. He's like,
yes. I'm on my way. I'm on my way to Virginia. But at least Jamie does call him out on that. With like, you're in the neighborhood, really? That's like, really far north. And even if like the ship came in in North Carolina, he still had to go out of his way because it's not like Fraser's Ridge is beachfront property.
No, it's the backcountry.
That's what they call. He was in the neighborhood. But you know what? Bless him for being in the neighborhood to go visit his man.
He was like, I was on the way to Hellwater from London, and so I just thought I'd swing by Fraser's Ridge quick. No big deal. Just, quick, 12
4 months at sea.
Yeah. 12-week detour boat, round trip.
Traffic on the pond. It was stacked up.
Oh, John. You sweet, sweet man. All right. So then after she talks to Colum, Claire goes outside and she sees Dougal playing with some of the kids, especially a little boy who Claire assumes is Dougal's son. And that's a lot to unpack.
No, it's not. An alternate title of this episode could be All in the Family. But she does tell the giant clan secret at dinner that night. She's lucky that they didn't take her head off.
I know. They're like, as if they didn't trust her. Her trust is like hanging by a thin thread. And she's just like, oh, Dougal, I saw your son out there. And everyone's
yes. Oh, my dog is barking. Fergus, what are you barking at? Dude, there's nothing there. I'm not going to edit that out. I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to let my dog bark for the podcast.
I love
Special guest appearance by Fergus, the Irish setter.
Well, it's nice. His name's Fergus. It goes with the theme. So I'm good with it.
I wanted to name him Jamie because he has red hair, but my husband disagreed. That's a true story.
Oh God. All right. Yeah.
Sorry,
so Claire makes an ass of herself at dinner. She gets really drunk and
she also makes an ass of Colum and Dougal and Letitia.
Yeah, which is not the best move. Your first night there
does not extend your life expectancy.
No. Claire, she's a smart woman in some respects, but other ones she just doesn't quite hit the mark.
I do like how as she's going back to her room after realizing what she just did, she reminds herself that of the things that Frank told her about withstanding interrogation, which is, the oldest trick in the book. They'll ply you with food and drink and get you drunk and lower your inhibitions and then just start asking question after question after question. And so she says she's going to have to be more careful and then proceeds to continue to drink like a fish the entire time she's there. I'm not judging. I'm just saying.
It's her only way to cope, right? She's like, I'm going to be stuck here, but at least I have alcohol.
At least there's the good wine. I'm not judging. I'm just saying. She makes this statement. She makes this realization about herself and does not internalize her own advice.
That's pretty typical Claire.
Ain't it?
Does not internalize her own advice. That's pretty Claire to a T. Oh, God. So then what happens?
I've gotten lost.
Oh, so then the next morning she wakes up and she's like, oh, Mrs. Fitz, I want to take Jamie, Mr. McTavish, his lunch up at the meadow. So she takes she says she has to go check on his bandages, but she also packs a little lunch and scares the bejesus out of the horse Jamie's trying to tame and almost gets him killed. And then he tells her more.
Killed might be a slight overstatement. That's a little bit hyperbole there.
It is, but
I'll get the hell hit out of him.
And then he tells her even more of his story. And it's kind of interesting that he just trusts Claire. Like, nobody in their right mind should trust Claire after the shenanigans that have occurred since she arrived there.
Right.
But he's like, oh yeah, I'll tell you all about it. And, McTavish isn't my real name. And, and Claire's even like, why do you trust me? But, it makes me think, though, Jamie did have a pretty severe head injury prior to.
You're right.
You have to wonder. Supposedly, the only lasting effect was his tone deafness, but maybe he's still feeling some residual,
So maybe we should, because I don't think this was ever actually covered in. Was this ever covered in the show? It's in the book. So, I mean, there might be some poor sod who's just listening to us going, I don't know what these people are talking about, but they're having fun.
Yeah.
So prior to where the show starts in the story, Jamie sustains a head injury. His uncle Dougal brains him with an axe, and it renders him tone deaf. And so that's kind of a thing. That's kind of a theme that occasionally comes up every once in a while, just to remind you he actually can't hear music. He can't sing. He used to be able to sing, but now he can't. Blah, blah, blah. Because of this head injury. And it's a fairly severe, he's lucky to be alive kind of a head injury.
Yeah, like they sent him to the Abbey, and they thought he was going to die, pretty much.
And then until Myrta dropped him off with the mercenaries in France. That's in Virgins. Oh, no. Have you read Virgins?
Yeah, but the mercenaries, that was before his head injury.
I thought it was about the same. I guess I'll. Or no, yeah, that was when he was after he'd just been flogged, because he was bleeding through his shirt. That's what it was. Never mind. You know what? Forget I said that.
He was in France 3 times. He went to university in France when he was like 16, and then
that's when he
came
met Pierre.
Back. Yep. Yes. Pierre. And then he came back. Then that's when he was flogged by Blackjack Randall, and they shipped him off again to be with the mercenaries. And then he came back and met up with the gang, and Dougal hit him with an axe, and then that's when they sent him to the Abbey.
I think it was a long time. Like, I don't know that he knew that it was Dougal at the time.
No, he didn't. And wait, is the Abbey? It is in, the Abbey is in France. That's right. In the show, it's like,
it's a little different.
But anyway, yeah.
There's some cool parts of we're 2.5 seasons. We're 2 seasons ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's Jamie's history. No, he didn't know it was Dougal. And in fact, I think even in the show at the time, I think at one time he mentions that Dougal saved his life after he was hit with an axe.
I think you're right. I guess we'll find out, and then that can be part of our corrections and clarifications segment in about 14 episodes.
If we don't make mistakes, we don't get to keep the section. So it's important.
True.
That we keep generating errors.
I like the way you think.
It's important to the flow, right?
Yes. We must bullshit as much as possible. So you're right, though, bringing this all the way back around, because boy did we take a detour. It could be his head injury is making him trust the crazy lady who lies badly.
I mean, I'm sure he would say it's because he loved her from, the moment he laid eyes on her, but I don't know.
I thought it was the moment she cried in his arms and he got the book boner.
That's right. Well, he says he
wanted her when he first saw her.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Fair. She was also half naked. By his standards.
In a white shift with rain just pouring.
Wet t-shirt contest. Didn't even know what that was, but he knew he liked it. But he said he loved her when she wept in his arms in the castle and got the book.
Claire invented the wet t-shirt contest. It's getting late.
Cheers.
Anyway, so anyway, she leaves. She realizes that she's being followed by one of Dougal's men, Angus. And then she decides to, just really go for it and just confront Dougal and basically demand what who do you think I am? Why are you treating me like this? Which is pretty ballsy.
Talk about kicking a hornet's nest. Like, just, boy, does she like to kick a hornet's nest. Like, she just can't help herself. Just like, there's a bear, I'ma poke it. And that's just what she does. That's what she does. I'm going to make this person angry. He's twice my size. He can kill me before I'll even notice. And I'm going to go piss him off on purpose.
I'm completely at his mercy. And, yeah, I mean, but again, that's Claire to a T. I mean, we see it over and over again. Oh boy!
Do you think that's something she picked up from Daria, or do you think that it was something that Daria helped her keep under wraps while they were at war together?
I'd have to think that Daria helped keep her under wraps because. If you think about it, Claire, I'm not saying she is, she's a very independent person. She doesn't, she doesn't need a man. She doesn't need a partner, but, she kind of does because she needs somebody to like temper her a little bit. Yeah. So I'm sure Frank played that role to some degree. And then when she was, in France during the war, Daria played that role for her. Mm-hmm. So,
she stopped to eat her crappy rations, made sure she was staying hydrated, got her to sleep, kind of things. Because Claire will also work herself to death if left to her own devices. So the fact that she survived,
survival instinct,
none. Like, she has so much, but then just like none.
Yeah. It's very strange.
It's a weird. Let's do it. Let's unpack this. So she has this strange like juxtaposition of traits here, where she's really good. Maybe not necessarily of thinking on her feet, because I'm on my way to France from somewhere south from here, but she is driven to survive and get back, like to get through the situation. However, if left to her own devices unsupervised, she will die of something stupid.
I mean, she would have probably been killed by Blackjack Randall as soon as she landed, as soon as she met him by that little river, right?
Not for Myrta. If not for this is all Myrta's fault. I wonder if he ever realized that. I wonder if there were ever days like just laying awake at night going, oh my God, if I hadn't saved her, I could have 5 minutes of peace right now.
But I think Myrta is the captain of the Jamie Claire ship. So I think he's reconciled himself to,
That's true. I mean, if Jamie is, I think he probably, if Jamie is busy taking care of Claire and making sure Claire stays alive, maybe Jamie's less likely to get himself into some stupid shenanigan shit that's going to get him killed. They have the same problem. Have you noticed that? They have the same problem.
It's kind of a brilliant plan on Myrta's part, if you actually really think about it.
Just wind him up and let him go.
It's kind of like, later, and I think this is in like the 3rd or 4th episode when Claire's teasing Jamie about Leary, and Myrta says to her, he needs a woman, not a girl. Like, Myrta knows. He's like Yenta here. Like, he's matchmaking,
But very subtle. He's clearly playing the long game. But yeah, so Claire definitely she does not necessarily need a man in her life, but she does necessarily need someone to keep her from doing stupid things to get her killed. And this continues through the series. So
Oh yeah.
Frank plays that role, Daria plays that role, Myrta briefly plays that role, Jamie plays that role, Lord John plays that role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God, boy, does he play that role so well.
Ah, he's so
Take a
noble.
moment. So noble. Such a romantic. Speaking of Lord
Yes.
John, what's John up to right now?
So John, I think is still in what is it, Aberdeen? Is that
Aberdeen.
where
You mean that hasn't changed in the last 3 days of narration?
No, he's still there. But I think he's probably making some headway with his crush on one of the young Scottish boys in town, Liam.
Yeah.
So it's a schoolboy crush. They're both young, first love. But he's working on it.
He knows he learns his type very early, which is tall Scots with red hair, right?
Yeah.
Okay, he
With
loves
like
he loves his
curly,
big
floofy.
Oh my god, Jamie's hair in this episode so fluffy. Like I thought he's like a ginger dandelion puff. the whole episode, the whole time I'm rewatching this is so different from like the sleek, like grandad Jamie from season 6, because that's what just ended as we're recording this.
Yeah.
And like he's got that sleek, the sleek wig, but no, this is
Chaos.
When I write unruly curls, I'm not even coming close to thinking of this. Like, well, he's got fan fiction hair.
He does. I think it was still like growing in at the time too, because it's a lot shorter in the first few episodes. So it's kind of in that awkward phase where it's just like the curls are still growing up instead of down,
Straight up. Was Sam wearing his own hair for this one? He wasn't wearing a wig on this one, right? He grew his hair out and dyed it.
Yeah, for at least the first season. I have to look up the second season, but yeah, he and Katrina both had their own hair the first season, and I think they both had to have it permed too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm distracted by the hair.
It is distracting,
What the hell are we talking about? We're talking about Floof, John's crush with Liam in Aberdeen, where Hal is continuing to be a pain in the ass. FU Hal. Hashtag FU Hal.
Hashtag I love Hal. Hal Stan Club.
We'll get there, but me and Hal have a complicated relationship. So complicated. So complicated. Yeah, so anyway. I think so after we've taken this crazy train and just run it off the rails and then over a cliff. Is Galus next?
Yes. So, well, the first thing is that before Galus, Claire does find out from Colum. He says that the Tinker, Mr. Petrie, can take her back to Inverness on Saturday. So,
she's just biding her time.
She thinks she's just biding her time. So then, she is kind of out and about in the garden, picking herbs, and she meets Galus Duncan. So,
Galus.
She's wife
suspicious.
Of
the fiscal.
The fiscal, that's the word.
The fiscal.
I love that. The fiscal.
What the fuck is a fiscal?
I have to assume it has something like a treasurer or like.
But he also kind of serves as. I'm gonna Google it, and this will be our clarification segment for next week. We'll just put a pin in that. Perfect. I'm probably gonna forget until I'm editing this episode, and then I go, "Oh yeah, I was supposed to look that up. Damn it." I'll do the research. I don't know what a fiscal is, but Galus is the fiscal's wife,
and she's definitely suspicious. The first thing she says to Claire is she sees one of the herbs or mushrooms or something in her basket and is like, oh, if you're gonna, poison your husband with that, let me know how it goes, because then I'll use it on mine. It's
And
like,
ain't that an
okay.
icebreaker? That's an icebreaker, right? Like
It's
nothing.
another.
You have to make your own fun in the 18th century, and apparently
Yeah,
murdering your spouse for Galis is that fun.
it
She's kind of
is,
a Black Widow.
Oh, definitely. Kind of.
Kind of. We're going to mark that down as the understatement of the episode.
Yeah, we'll get more into Galis and her string of dead husbands, but it's funny because Galis, as weird as she is, so like Claire's, pretty weird, but she also seems like, to everybody, like a highborn English woman. Like she seems suspicious that she might be a spy, but otherwise she doesn't seem like psychotic. But
She doesn't seem all that threatening. She's kind of got the Kubrick stare a little. Not like the full on head down, eyes up thing, head to the side. Like not all of that, but like there's something behind those eyes. And it's not right. And
And
she
yet
has a lot of really
somehow,
probing questions.
yeah, and somehow she's a better survivor than Claire. Even with all of the suspicious crazy eyes and everything, because she's been there for quite a while.
Quite a while. She does play along better than a monkey with a mandolin. I can give her that.
Yeah, she does.
When in Rome, might as well kill my husband.
But it's true though, because she's sneakier than Claire, right? Like Claire is just like everything with her chest out, right? And Galis is much more under the radar,
She is. I mean, it probably helps that there's not a language barrier there with Galis. She speaks their language, and sounds like them, looks like them, kind of thing. But also, like, she just kind of leans into the kooky old witch persona. She doesn't really deny it.
Right.
But she doesn't admit to it either, because she doesn't want to get stoned to death. That would ruin her day. But she doesn't fight it either. So she just kind of lets the people think what they will and continues to do her weird little stuff. But she's married to an important person, so she's relatively safe.
I just looked it up, and she arrives in the 18th century in 1733. So she's been there for like
10 years.
10 years when Claire shows up. That's pretty crazy.
10 years without indoor plumbing.
Ugh. Don't even. Where's Brie when we need her?
Not born yet.
True. So,
she's also not alive.
No. I mean, technically, though, Claire and Galis aren't either. Right?
I think, ow.
Let's not go there. Okay.
Yeah, let's go there. I've still got a little tequila left.
I just mean the time travel. And I've got a really big rant about time travel that has to do with Galis later on, but I'm going to save it for the right episode because...
You're going to save it? Because we're approaching half an hour?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you mean an hour?
Half an hour.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Time is meaningless.
If you listen on 1.5 speed.
Yes.
Time speed. I mean.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. What the hell? Now I want to know what we sound like. I'm going to have to do that. I bet it's grating.
I probably sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. That's a reference that just dated us. Sorry about that.
I mean, there was the live act. Anyway, let's not. Wow. Let's not.
Yeah, okay.
So Galis, we don't trust Galis.
Nope.
Claire doesn't trust Galis. At least she knows not to trust Galis.
But at the same time, she's like, oh, maybe this person can be my friend. So, I mean, she doesn't trust her, but she also is like, she's not very good at maintaining friends with women. So she's kind of like, oh, maybe she could be my friend, even though I don't trust her.
That's definitely how you base a long-lasting, mutually beneficial friendship, is on no trust whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Suspicion and threats of murder.
I dig it,
That's how you keep them together.
So that night at the hall, everybody's comes together and everybody's, complaining to Colum about, neighborly disputes about cows and stuff. And then Leary Mackenzie's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Leary Mackenzie's. Yeah. Of course, they're all Mackenzies. What the hell am I thinking?
Basically.
Her father drags her in and he wants her beaten publicly for acting loose
behavior.
Loose behavior. And
but she don't really
Jane,
specify what qualifies as loose behavior. Is she just kissing boys? Is she being flirtatious, or did he catch her doing something out
it's
of
interesting because there is a fic that kind of explores that whole thing. It's called Second Wife. It's pretty good, and it does go into her backstory and stuff. Yeah, I know this isn't the section where we recommend fic, but I just thought of it. So
that's okay.
So yeah, that's it. It's pretty good. I like it a lot. It focuses on obviously Leary and Jamie's brief marriage, but it does go into her background and stuff. So check it out.
I might have to.
Is it angsty? Don't remember who the author is. It is very angsty. It's very angsty. So
I live for the trauma. The characters, not mine.
Trauma vicariously through.
It's much better. I can call it cathartic this way. Okay, so Claire is supposed to get whipped in public or beaten or whatever. And Jamie takes a punishment for her.
Yeah, and Claire's like, what's going on here?
Myrta tries to talk him out of it because, again, Myrta is the I'm trying to keep you alive, dumbass kind of a character.
And Jamie is still healing from a gunshot wound, and his shoulder is still, in danger of being redislocated. But Jamie,
and he chooses fists. He chooses to get beat to shit, and he's still got this head injury. Yeah.
But I think he just does not want the strap because that probably brings up too many.
Fair. Now's not the time for a flashback. Now is not the time for a flashback.
Oh God. So anyway, after he takes the punishment for her, Claire runs off again to see to his injuries. And they make a lot of heart eyes at each other. But then she tells him she's leaving because she's gonna go to Inverness with the Tinker. So he looks very sad and disappointed. And then they say goodbye.
Because who is he gonna give heart eyes to and have questionably appropriate boners around if she's gone?
Well, luckily Leary is right in the doorway, and she pops right in to fill that void.
She is ready to swoop in and be of service.
And, I think Claire thought, which was probably a good guess, that Jamie took the beating for her because either he was the one she was having loose behavior with, or, that they were involved somehow. But Jamie just tells Claire that he just felt bad for her and didn't want her to have to suffer that humiliation.
Yeah. Jamie has, I'm not going to go into it for this episode because I could go for literal hours talking about this. But Jamie has this kind of a connection in his sense of his own self-worth to what of his body he is able to give to somebody else, or what of his person he's able to sacrifice to someone else. And that really, that's this time I'm not actually bullshitting. Like I have, there's a meta.
Yeah.
Not going to get into it, but this kind of hints at the entire rest of the series. Like his whole character arc is, it kind of centers around this in one way or another. And it can be really fun to unpack.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, you know, he like he will sacrifice his body for those that he loves in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of it makes you think about how much his philosophy in life, his religion, whatever, like how does that make him not value his own physicality? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like there's some things he does not ever want to give up, right? Like
Right.
his honor and things like that. And it's much more devastating to him when things happen to him that do take away those non-physical things that are important to him. But his body is just something that
the way he was kind of groomed, which we can unpack. There's opportunities for us to unpack this later, but he was definitely groomed primarily by his uncles.
Absolutely. Anywho,
that was a downer. I'm sorry.
So anyway, it's all right. We got to go there sometimes. So anyway, Claire gets ready to leave. She has her little picnic basket all ready to go. And instead she goes outside and I think it's Dougal or someone tells her, you got to go back inside. And she finds out that they are going to keep her because she's a skilled healer. So they bring her down to the former healer's little
surgery where she and Frank boinked in 200 years.
Yes. And that becomes her new home.
Yes, and she cries.
Yeah.
Fair. There's no natural light in there.
But Jamie's going to be happy. So
Jamie's going to be happy. So I do like this line where she asks if she's a prisoner. Is it Dougal who says only if you try to leave? That would be the definition of prisoner, man.
Yeah.
He could have just said yes, but he went with the more menacing threat because he's an ass.
Well, that's Dougal, you know.
It is Dougal. Well, it was Dougal, right? Yeah, it was Dougal. Only if you try to leave. Well, that's what a prisoner is, sir. God.
Well, and, you know, I think kind of up until that point, Claire, she knew she couldn't trust Dougal, but I think she thought that she could trust Colm.
Yup.
Or at least that Colm, because she has impressed him and she thinks she's kind of fooled him, she thinks that he is going to just let her go. And she kind of realizes, you know, wow, I actually am all alone here because I can't trust any of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't trust her, rightly so. What a mess.
Miss France.
France.
Well, anyway, I think we are just a little past half an hour right now.
Just a tiny bit. Only a little. It's okay.
Or no, we're not quite there. No, not quite. Actually, we're doing okay.
Yeah, we have a minute or two left before we get to that 30-minute mark.
Is there anything we haven't covered that we wanted to cover?
I'm looking at our notes. Well, so we can next time we can have a link for Second Wife, that fic. I should point out, since I think I meant to talk about this and I completely forgot. When we post links to the episodes on Tumblr, we'll include links to any interesting sources for stuff that we didn't actually make up. And we'll post links to the fics that we recommend as well. So if you want to take the easy way, we can do that on Tumblr.
And I have that picture of the red coat that I found at the airport.
I was right. It is a little bit more of an orangey red. So yeah, we'll include interesting tidbits because we're nerds and we can't help ourselves.
You know, I felt like like I was so embarrassed that I was like taking a picture of this red coat in the middle of an airport. Right. And then when I got back from my trip, some dude was taking a picture of it as I walked past
doing the same terminal.
I had to be like, do you like Outlander?
Let me tell you why this is a fascinating piece of memorabilia right here. Like this is a great piece of history, and it has nothing to do with history. Why I think it's interesting, but here it is.
Let me just talk your ear off and make you late for your plane. Oh God!
Let me give you a link to my podcast. Just kidding.
Oh dear! Please no. All right.
So I think that concludes episode 2. Thanks everyone for listening. Yes. If you still are. This is when I should do this with tequila more often.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you, because this
from
is
the bottom of my glass. And next time we will go over episode 3. So thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
This podcast is not affiliated with Outlander, Sony, Starz, and definitely 100% not with Diana Gabaldon. All opinions expressed are our own, and we may not even believe them ourselves. In fact, nothing in this podcast should be taken seriously as a general rule. We may not even be real people. Does this podcast even exist?
This podcast is not suitable for children, immature adults, homophobes, anyone who takes fandom too seriously, people who don't understand that the characters aren't real, people with sticks up their ass, people who hate fun, and people who have no sense of humor. Do not try any of these hot takes at home. We are professionals.
The FDA has not approved this podcast for human consumption. Side effects may include nausea, vomiting, the urge to send us anonymous homophobic hate, ringing in your ears, and constipation. If you experience any of these side effects, ask your doctor if dying mad about it is right for you.
If you know us in real life, no, you don't.